Hello there, and welcome to this festive Tech Calendar 2024 session. Before I jump into my session, I'd like to call out a couple of links. One of those is the nominated charity for this year's festive Tech Calendar, which runs all the way through December. So that's Beats on Cancer Charity, which is www.beatsoncancercharity.org. And if you'd like to donate, there is a Just Giving link as well, the main festive Tech Calendar 2024 page. So my session for this year's festive Tech Calendar is Ho Ho Whoa! 10 tips for data warehousing in the cloud. As a caveat, I am not going to be specifying any particular vendor or any particular service. This is going to be completely agnostic. Any of these tips can be applied across any of these providers and should be evaluated against those providers as well. So my name is Andy Cutler. That QR code will take you to my Linktree, which has all my socials, Blue Sky, YouTube, LinkedIn, so on and so forth. I work for myself as an independent consultant. So I work mostly with, and I know I said I wouldn't mention any platforms, but my day-to-day is working with Microsoft, so the Azure platform. My company is available at datahigh.co.uk, and from a community perspective, I blog at serverlessSQL.com. So today, the 10 tips are going to cover a broad range. So we're going to go through some objectives. Why do you want a cloud data warehouse? We'll have a look at a platform, scalability, ingestion, data quality and governance, how to look after your data, what continuous integration and continuous delivery mean for you in the cloud warehousing space, the importance of monitoring and security, what you're going to do in terms of training and collaboration, and costs. That's the last one that I want to end on, especially with cloud data warehousing. So we'll come on to that as we get in. So firstly, why would we want to deploy a cloud data warehouse? We're not going to do this for the sake of it. So for the very first time, you're going to need to sit down, work out what your objectives and outcomes are. Is this to reduce on-premises footprint? Is it to reduce maintenance costs? Is it opportunities you see in using cloud technology? You have to have these outcomes defined. Otherwise, you don't really know what you're going to be aiming for. You need people involved in this project. Warehousing as a whole, data warehousing, is not an IT-driven process. It's not a tech-driven process. The entire reason you have a warehouse is to deliver to the business as a whole. You need stakeholders in the business. You need champions, whether that's the chief information officer, the chief financial officer, people in sales, marketing. You need buy-in. You need people in the project to help you. Very important. And also, how are you going to track the efficiency and effectiveness when you're trying to achieve these goals? Maybe you've got some time frames. Maybe you're an organization that has clients themselves. So when you're designing and building your warehouse, how long is it going to take? What's involved? How are we going to track that over time to make sure that we're deploying our cloud warehouse effectively? Then when we're choosing a platform, and I said I wasn't going to go into any specifics with any vendors, but there are several cloud warehousing vendors out there. Your organization is going to have to evaluate a best fit. And this is going to be across, well, certainly costs. It's going to be across integration and interop with other services that the organization has deployed, the skill sets within that organization as well. Do your due diligence. Look at each of the vendors with their pros and their cons and compare. One cloud warehousing platform for one organization may not fit another. It is not a one size fits all. Look at the benchmarks. Try and find independent benchmarks. Vendor benchmarks are very good from a sales and marketing perspective, but do they really give you the picture of what you'll expect out of the performance from a platform? Try and differentiate the sales and marketing from actual performance benchmarks. And this is a very simple one. How much does it cost? I'm going to expand on that on the cost section. You need to understand pricing structures. One of the benefits of cloud warehousing, which is a ability to run a platform in the cloud, seemingly by magic, with no infrastructure costs, no maintenance costs. There's also a drawback in that some of these costs are quite obscure. You need to work out how the pricing structures work in the platforms that you're looking at. And this is important when it comes to scale and compute. Now, when we plan for scalability, we've got two states that we're interested in: our current and our future. Now, future might be around opportunities. So whatever warehouse platform you're on at the moment that's maybe driving you into the cloud, perhaps future is all about opportunity. Maybe it's about scale. Maybe it's about ingesting data from more sources to meet your business requirements. There are architectural patterns. Each platform has its own set of principles, has its own set of best practices. Get to know them so that you can understand how best to deploy the chosen warehouse. And in fact, when you're choosing, it may be of benefit to actually understand how that cloud warehouse is architected, how it works with other services. And you're going to have to evaluate it based on what you need now, but also what you're going to need in the future as well. You don't want to design a system that's just stuck here. And then when we talk about modular design, when we go to the cloud, we have an opportunity to break out all of the parts of a warehousing platform into more modular components. We can break out the ETL or the ELT processes. We can break out the data storage. We can break out the compute and the modeling. How do we identify each service? And more importantly, are we able to swap a service out if we find we can do it better with another service later on down the line? Ultimately, this does give you flexibility. There's probably been a bit of tech debt there, but modular design enables you to move these components around. So what's a warehouse without any data? We need to ingest data into the warehouse. So ultimately, you'll look at various ways of ETLing or ELTing, extract, load and transform, or extract, transform and load your data from the source systems into your warehouse, but categorize your data sources. What do you have? I never want to use the word traditional, but traditional data warehouses are very much based on structured data. Landscape of data has changed massively over the last few years. What types of data do we have now? We could have data from internal corporate systems. We could have third-party data. It could be structured, tabular data, could be videos, files, documents. What types of data do we have? And then we've got a couple of different ways that we might want to ingest this data. Batch data processing, yes, tried and tested. This is on usually a schedule. You are defining when data is going to land into your warehouse and be processed and available for downstream usage, reporting, analytics, so on and so forth, based on the availability in those source systems. But of course, real-time data ingestion, this is and has been growing as a very hot topic. And across the different service providers, real-time has become easier to actually realize and deploy. Several of the vendors offer out-of-the-box solutions in terms of wiring up data sources that are event-driven and ultimately processing data and making that available within reports, within dashboards. So real-time really should be at the forefront of your decisions as well when you're looking at these platforms. Shouldn't necessarily be the be-all and end-all, but it needs to be in there as well. So the whole point of warehousing for me is that you're taking all of that disparate data from all of your source systems, all of your third parties, and you're trying to make sense of it. You can do it from a compliance perspective, you can do it from a reporting or a compliance perspective, but ultimately you want to make sure that you're putting as high a degree of accurate and trusted data into the warehouse as possible. Many data warehousing projects have failed because the trust in the data has faltered. So you need to make sure that platforms that you're selecting, you can put data quality validation rules in place. These can be code-based, these can be tool-based, but you as an organization have to define your SLAs, the quality of data that you expect, and put those in place. Now, when we're data warehousing, we can deploy a certain modeling technique. It could be Data Vault, it could be Third Normal Form Inman, it could be Kimball, but whatever modeling pattern we're putting in place, again, it's about the reliability of the data that you're putting into the warehouse. Build your warehouse in terms of data reliability to whatever modeling pattern that you're using. And the last thing is lineage and auditing. And again, there are tools with vendors that are included or for an additional cost that help you track the lineage of data from a source system all the way through to the report that it's being used at. Now, different vendors have got different features in terms of their lineage tools and also different maturity levels as well. So you can analyze and see which is going to best fit what you need from an organizational perspective. And included as well is the auditing. So what is happening to that data at each level? If you have a certain number of rows being exported from a source system, can you account for those rows in a destination report? Now, with automation and CI/CD, we've got opportunity to remove some of that pain in the world of data warehousing. I've always felt that people are spoilt for choice in software engineering in terms of source control and continuous integration and continuous deployment, and the data world has tended to lag a little bit behind that. I may get in trouble from certain data people for saying that. That's just been my experience. It's really good that these processes have started to become more at the forefront of what vendors are offering. There's been many a CIO has sat there and said, okay, it looks a great tool. Brilliant, it can do all our data warehousing. How easy it is to develop for. How do we deploy changes? How often can we deploy changes? And of course, consistency across environments. Data warehousing is probably one of the, I'm probably going to be biased here for saying this, but probably one of the most difficult in terms of maintaining different environments. How often in data warehousing have we heard, well, we need to do testing, but we can only do testing on real data? Platforms have ways of obfuscating data across different environments. We can use our CI/CD processes and practices to deploy code to different environments and make sure that we've got robust pipelines in place so that each environment that we have is fit for purpose. Now, we're also looking at automation to help us with system monitoring as well. And I've added there service modification. There are some vendors out there where the warehousing platform auto adjusts to the usage demands placed upon it. And there are other vendors where you have to do more capacity planning. You have to understand your current needs, but also plan for what you may need in the future. They're all scalable. They can all be scaled up. They can all be scaled down. It's just the maturity of the processes around the scalability. So definitely check into that as well. Now, in terms of monitoring, when we're implementing any technology really, we've got to measure the effectiveness of that technology. I'm not talking about the data itself. I'm talking about the performance. I'm talking about the ingestion processes, the query performance. How fast is it taking to deliver the results and the insights after the data has been processed? Put those KPIs in place. And again, within vendors, products, there may be system views, there may be metadata tables that you can gain access to that will show you how long queries are taking to run, and you can take that data and build reports from that and see how long your data ingestion processes are taking to run over time. Essential for monitoring how effective your cloud warehouse is. If timings start to creep up and latency starts to be introduced, we got a problem. Now, you can implement something. Is it actually going to be used? Now, I would say that implementing a data warehouse, regardless of whether it's cloud or on-prem, is a considered business. It's a considered decision. You want to make sure you're monitoring who is using it, who has access to it. What are they doing with it? And ultimately, have you provisioned the resources that are being used wisely? Perhaps you've over-provisioned, and when you're monitoring usage during the day, you can see patterns of very quiet time, perhaps an opportunity to scale back your resources. And of course, performance tracking. So again, this could be system views within the cloud warehouse itself. It could be a bolt-on where we're looking at how fast this system is performing over time, linked in with those KPIs as well. Now, in terms of security, we're in the cloud, so we need to make sure that our platform is secure and meets whatever organizational security footprint is required. So the first one is data at rest. So data is stored somewhere. If it's in the cloud, it's stored on a storage. If it's a data warehouse with proprietary storage mechanisms, the data is stored within there. If it's within data lakes, the data is stored somewhere. It's in a data center somewhere. How secure is that data at rest? If someone were to physically access that data and remove the drives or remove where that data is stored, are they going to be able to access it? I know it's an extreme case. However, we need to make sure that our data is encrypted at rest. Now, fine. We've made sure that the service that we have said, yes, these are encryption algorithms for the data at rest. But what about during transmission? What about moving the data from source systems to the ETL engines, to the data warehouse, to the reports? How secure is that journey of the data? And last but by no means least, who's accessing? Who is authorized to access the warehouse platform, and what are they authorized to do? Can they develop? Can they query? Can they modify data? Can they modify the warehouse structure. That feeds into compliance. Every organization has compliance footprints. If they are independently audited, they need to show that the systems they've put in place are robust and meet demands. Now, when it comes to training, and I've wanted to add in collaboration as well, because when you're implementing a data warehouse, like I said at the beginning about objectives and stakeholders, this isn't a solitary department's responsibility. This is cross-company. This is cross-department. Now, this isn't anything new. When you implement software, any organization should be training their employees. I just think that's just part of the contract that an employer has with their employees. If you're going to implement something, it doesn't matter whether it's a piece of technology or a new process. You train your people to understand how to work with it. Without it, how are people supposed to be effective? How are people supposed to be able to use that tool or process effectively? Put training programs in place. Make sure people know how it works. But that's the hard stuff. I like the soft stuff. I like the collaboration. Data warehouses are supposed to be distributing data for reporting purposes and for analytics purposes, obviously with the right checks and balances in place. When you're delivering data to meet business needs, there is a feel-good factor there, right? You as the data warehouse architect or the data warehouse developer, the CDO, the CIO, you want to make sure that your data or your company's data is being used effectively. You're collaborating with people around the business about what do you need? What can we deliver for you to make your job better? Can we give you the data for sales targets? How's your marketing getting on? We've got all the event streams that are coming from all our web pages, for example. We can give you this data. It fosters that collaboration and knowledge sharing. Essentially, when you're using these tools, what can you share in terms of usage of that tools with other departments? Perhaps there are members in other departments that are a bit of a dab hand at SQL, a bit of a dab hand at data modeling. Maybe you can collaborate with them, offload some of that, devolve some responsibilities into other areas of the business, under the right conditions, of course. We don't want to bring the data warehouse down with a rogue SQL query, but it's an opportunity to be cross-functional. It's an opportunity to share with other parts of the organization. And the last thing is costs. All the other 9 tips are great, absolutely fantastic. If I look at each of those tips, I could take each one of those and expand on it to the nth degree. Costs, on the other hand, you're going to need to understand the pricing structure. I touched on that at the very beginning. Look at how much it costs to run compute. Look at how much it costs to store the data. In this new world of cloud data warehousing, we often find a separation of compute and a separation of storage, which means there are 2 costs. Yes, look at and understand the compute pricing, but have a scroll down the bottom of the page, the pricing page on the website, and you'll more than likely see some storage costs there as well. Understand how much that's costing. Understand if there's any backups. Cloud warehousing platforms, they often have features that allow you to restore to a previous point in time. That all takes storage. How much is that all costing? But of course, there are different service tiers within cloud warehousing platforms. So often a advertised price of compute may not actually be the service tier that your company requires. You may need a higher tier because there are certain compliance inbuilt into those more expensive tiers. Understand the pricing structure. And I know this is such an obvious optimizing cost. This is all about continuously monitoring what your warehouse is doing. Perhaps there are some ETL processes that could be optimized. Perhaps there's some storage that could be optimized. Perhaps there are different times of day in which the warehouse platform is busier than others, and you can adjust the compute accordingly. And the last is visibility of costs. And again, this may not be a data warehouse specific feature within an offering, but you should be able to see how much this is costing you on a minute by minute basis. Again, a lot of the vendors will offer you pay-as-you-go pricing, i.e. this is what you pay for every minute or every hour that you run the service. They may also offer discounts for pre-purchasing compute up front. I've always been a huge advocate of that. So if a vendor has any form of upfront discount pricing, hopefully you can pay that off over, pay it off monthly rather than a one hit at the beginning. The discounts offered can be substantial. So always, always, always have a look and see what other options do you have other than pay as you go. But the visibility of costs, hopefully there is some sort of cost center, cost control, logs that you can take, put into your reporting tool of choice and visualize the whole data warehouse platform, but also the subdivided elements in there. How much are your data loading processes taking? Or how much is your data loading processes costing? How much is your storage costing and your compute? And so on and so forth. So that's, in my view, 10 generic tips in terms of approaching cloud warehousing. Don't have to use all of them. Could be an existing platform as well that you're looking at, and maybe you want to put some more robust monitoring in or cost control. But again, what I'd like to do is say a big thank you. And I'm going to put the two links in here again, which is every year, Festive Tech Calendar nominates a charity to support. This year, it's beatsoncancercharity.org. There's the Just Giving page. So it's Festive Tech Calendar 2024 if you would like to donate. And all of the Festive Tech Calendar sessions all the way through December are going to be available on the YouTube channel to watch. I'd like to wish you happy holidays and a happy new year. Thank you.